So if you're a projector, one of the things that's really essential to keep in mind is that families are very, very distorting. Yeah, I know, but I mean, there are people that are really designed for that. First of all, if you're a generator, you're designed to envelop. So you're designed to take in those auras of others. So you go to Thanksgiving dinner, and despite the fact that there are this and that's about it, your enveloping aura puts you there, and it keeps you there, and it holds you there, and it's all okay. But, if you're a projector, projectors are supposed to be on the outside of the group, directing inward, rather than being on the inside of the group and losing all their power. And the moment that a projector gets into the group is the moment that they lose their capacity to guide and become conditioned to being a slave. So, most projectors in families are the family super slave. This is where the family puts all the pressure. This is where the family puts all the guilt. This is where the family puts the trip. This is where you're never good enough because you were never a manifester. That you can never really get things done. And there's all this pressure. So you've got all these projectors, particularly when they go home for a family visit, they really go nuts. It's very depressing. They lose their identity in that. They lose their power in that. Now, I always have to be careful. I'm a manifester, and what I say has impact. So you also have to see the other side of that. I'm not suggesting for a moment that all you projectors be celibate, never have families, all that kind of stuff. It really isn't about that. But it really is about understanding your nature. You're at your best one-on-one. So if you're going to go to a family gathering, put yourself in the kind of situation where you don't have to sit in the middle of the puddle, and get yourself dragged into a level that's not there. Make your one-on-one contacts. Deal with one person at a time. Try not to get caught in, and particularly don't get in one of those situations where everybody sits around the table and says, George or Joni has a problem, what should we do? The kind of thing where you get dragged into the inside of that, and your guidance is never going to be accepted. I mean, it's the first thing to realize about being a projector and looking at your families is that your families don't recognize your wisdom, don't recognize that you can be a guide. Projector children normally look at their parents and go, oh, Jesus. I mean, this is the projector thing. You look at your parents and you go, oh, no. And you can't tell them. You're 5 years old. You can't tell your mother what to do. You can't tell her to straighten up her life. You can try. It isn't necessarily going to be effective, but nonetheless, you can try, you can do that thing. But it's something to understand, again, about what it is to be a projector. I mean, I know this is a manifester. I have a closed and repelling aura. I'm great in family situations. I don't even want anybody to come near me, let alone that, I'm welcomed in that kind of environment. And of course, they all want to, do that kind of thing. And there's this incredible disinterest that arises out of the aura. We all have to accept our nature and compensate for it intelligently. I mean, the moment that you understand any kind of mechanic, basically what you're being given is you're being given a tool. You're being given a way of seeing, all right, this is the way it works, so how do I take advantage of this? So part of what I want to give you today is an indication of those of you that are real suckers for the group, okay, and those of you that aren't, which means you should really be aware because you often think you should be. Look, if I have a projector who's not designed, by design, to get seduced into the group, that's what you want. The not-self projector, oh, why did they leave me out? Why can't I be in that? I need, all of this kind of, poor me. And of course, if you're really designed to be lost in the group, you get lost in the group. You give up everything. You end up being the ultimate service, no matter what it is. You got a senile parent, all of a sudden there's the burden. You get dumped with all these kinds of things because it's always projectors that hold the bag. Yeah? So you might as well see it, and not get stuck with it, because otherwise that's what happens to you. Okay, I'm going to take you through one at a time, and I'm going to start with Christy. Split definition. The moment that you're a split definition projector, should I say something nasty? Nah. The moment that you're a split definition projector, it means that there is nothing more important to you than being able to discern who's the right relationship. If you're a split definition projector, it's always that way. And in your case, Christy, you're a broad split, which means it's difficult for you because everybody you look at has a problem. Everybody you look at has a problem. Everybody. It's always the other. They all have a problem. They're all fucked up. The whole world's crazy. They're nuts. And of course it creates dilemmas because you're never seeing that, God forbid that you should be part of the problem. It's always everybody else that's the problem. You're here to be recognized for your mind. I mean, this is a 63-4 definition, mental definition, logical definition, somebody that's here to be recognized for their answers and recognized for the ability that not only do you have answers, but you can sell them. It's always good to be a transmitter. Transmitters 4426, that channel, has this nice name, Surrender. This is called salesmanship. The transmitter. The transmitter always has access to the tribe, always has access to those people that are around you. They're the ones that are here to know that you're the one. So if they got a problem, if they want somebody else to hear about that problem, they'll naturally recognize that you're the person to transmit it. I mean, transmitters are great gossips, eh? And gossip is a wonderful thing because without gossip, we don't know what the hell's going on, eh? I mean, you don't. As a matter of fact, gossip is the only thing that holds tribes together. The only thing that holds tribes together. Did you hear about, Nelson? So you're here to be recognized for your ability to get information out. You're here to be recognized for your answers. If you're not recognized for your answers, if you're not recognized for your ability to get things out, you're not being recognized. I mean, it's simple. This is what it is. Now, as a projector, you have no direct connection to being involved in groups at all. Okay? So the moment that you want to be on the inside, the moment you want to belong, is the moment you're really in trouble. Okay? Because that is not the way it works. It's okay for you to be on the outside looking in. It's okay for you to be on the outside directing in that sense. But the moment you get on the inside, and the moment that you're on the inside, you're going to be managed by other people, and it's going to really annoy you. Because they're always going to be telling you what to do. And this is not what projectors are about. You're here to tell other people when they ask what to do. If they don't ask, don't tell. Sounds like a gay commercial. Don't ask, don't tell. Eden. Now here's an interesting example. Here's a projector, single definition, only definition. The only definition is the throat to the identity. Nothing else, through the channel of leadership. So it's a no-brainer, right? You're here to be recognized as a leader. If nobody's saying to you, will you be my leader, you've got nothing to do. Because you can't just stand up there and say, hey, I'm a leader, follow me. Because nobody's going to follow you. The only beings that are going to follow you are the ones that recognize that you're a leader. Allow people to recognize that you're a leader. Now, the thing to be clear about when you're a single definition projector is that all those open centers are really powerful, powerful influences, conditioning influences, deep conditioning influences. So, it is something really to grasp about this kind of definition. This is a self-projected authority. In other words, what that means is what you say in the now is the only thing you can ever trust. Think about that, these people. The only thing you can ever trust is what you say in the now and what you say spontaneously after invitation. The other thing is, you're a leader who expresses themselves through words. So people who are going to ask for your verbal guidance, who are going to invite you to give them their verbal guidance, these are the beings that really are on your fractal. These are the ones that will allow you to be recognized as a leader. And being recognized by a leader, again, will bring its rewards. Now, in your case, you're somebody that has very strong penta definition. The 31-7 is part of the penta configuration. And basically what that means is that the moment that you get into a group, you're immediately given responsibilities for administration. Now, that isn't necessarily where you belong, because then you can't guide in any of the other areas that are possible. Because what happens to projectors when you get pulled into groups? You get pigeonholed into certain activities, and you can't get out of them at all. So somebody has the 31-7 when they're in a group, everybody just wants you to plan. You make the plans. That's all. They don't want you to realize them. They don't want you to, they don't want you to do any of the other things but, those administrative things. Same thing in the family. In a family situation, if you have the 31-7, the family always expects you to be the heavy one. You're the one that has to decide who gets punished. You're the one who has to decide who's been good and who's been bad. This is one of those things where you get trapped in things that are not correct for you. Remember, you're really here not to be seduced into those group functions in which you lose your one-on-one potential to be able to be effective as a projector. All right, Eric. Now, you're a triple split projector. Right? I mean, it's the fascinating thing about projectors because projectors have all of these possibilities. Right? So you're a triple split projector. So the first thing about being a triple split projector is recognizing that the only way that you can make a decision is after you've been through auric contact. Look, anybody that's got a split, you're always trying to hook up the parts. So you got 3 parts, and there's no set way to hook them all up. There isn't. It's not like being a split, and if you get a gate or a channel, you can bring the 2 parts together. Triple split, there's all kinds of variations. So in order for you to make a decision that's correct for you, you need to bring those 3 parts of you together. And the only way that you can really do that is by taking advantage of the public aura. So you're here to take advantage of the public aura. It's like being in a room like this. Or being in a cafe or a theater or a bus or whatever the case may be. In those environments, those 3 parts of you are being brought together without prejudice. If you have one person pulling all those parts together, eventually you're not going to be happy with that. Triple splits have difficulties maintaining relationships with people over long periods of time because they tend to be influenced in a very, very powerful way because they're always being aligned in a certain way. So that's a key for you. The other thing is that your recognition operates in different levels. You're a thinker. This is your head center to the ajna through the 6124. So you're a thinker. So you're here to be recognized for your individual, your unique way of thinking. You're here to be recognized as a leader. You have the channel 31-7. And you're here to be recognized as a transmitter. Now, there's a lot of transmitters in the room. Transmitters are very, very powerful beings because they're the ones that get the word out, whatever the word happens to be. But this is what they're there for. They're there to transmit the news. They're there to transmit information. So you're here to be recognized as somebody that can get the information out. You're here to be recognized as a thinker. You're here to be recognized as a leader. If you don't get that recognition, those beings are not for you. You're here to be invited to transmit, invited to lead, invited to think, literally, to be able to express those things for the benefit of others. So again, when you're looking at your design, very, very important to see that your design is pointing to precisely what other people are here to recognize in you. And what happens to us is that because we live out our lives in all that openness, we get stuck in this open center or that open center and we're conditioned. Then what we're putting out in our aura confuses what other people see. So they tend to imagine what they see. They tend to see your conditioning. So you're unemotional and you're always in an emotional snit, and they're going to recognize you as an emotional being, but you're not. So the more correct you are in the way in which you live out your process, the more you're going to get specific recognition. Now, anybody that carries leadership, the 31-7, the channel of the alpha, leadership for good or bad, blah, 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 all that stuff, you have to see that this is one of those very, very powerful activations for a projector because it's pointing specifically to the fact that this is what you're about. In other words, this is the way you're going to live out your role in this life. You need to live out your role as a leader, as a thinking leader, as a leader that transmits, and again, you have to be invited to that. No invitation doesn't work. It's like a democratic election. You can't claim the victory. You have to be elected to it, selected for it, whatever the case may be. So everything about being a projector is understanding that the more pure you are in the way in which you live your process, the more your definition gets recognized by the other. Now understand something. I reference this as a generic channel of leadership. Your leadership is dependent on what turned out to be your focus. In other words, that thing that you've studied, that thing that you've mastered, that thing that you've built up all your detailed resources, that's the thing that becomes the key in the leadership. So, for example, let's say that you studied engineering, right? If somebody is going to recognize you as a leader, they're going to recognize you as a leader in that area. In other words, whatever your background is, whatever your key is in terms of what you've mastered as a projector, this is what's going to be reflected in those invitations. This is what they're recognizing. All right, Felicity. 1156, unconscious. You're not somebody that has a natural connection to groups at all, and you can end up being very, very heavily micromanaged. This is one of the most difficult things for projectors, is that the moment that they end up in groups, everybody else tries to guide them. I mean, get the joke. Right? You end up in a group and there's some generator telling you what you should be doing. And they do. They will. They will tell you precisely what you should do and tell you that you're useless at it as well. You're not a really good worker. No, I didn't come here to work. Well, work here, you get paid. And the moment you're in the group, you're really in trouble, because that's the moment that you lose your power, you lose your guidance, you lose all of those things, and you don't get the recognition. The moment they drag you into the group, the only thing that gets recognized is the little activations that you have in the group aura. Which means that, the main themes of who you are can be totally lost. Nobody's interested. So inside that group, you're not going to get the recognition. Projectors get recognition from one person at a time. I mean, it's the way that it works. If you go into a group, you're not going to be recognized. You're not. This is one of the things to see. And if you do get attention, which is a different thing, you're going to get attention for all the negatives that are there in your process. All of that conditioning that you're carrying, all of that stuff. They're going to say to you, wow, you'd be great at that. And, if you look at your design, you see, but that's not me. What do you mean I'm going to be great at that? Oh, you're going to be a great organizer. No, you're talking about my wife. She's the 1762, not me. You end up being, recognized for, those aspects of conditioning that you've taken in that you think is you because they're not there, so you want them. I got to have them. It's amazing how many people desire being distorted. Pure desire. Let me be what I'm not. Let me be recognized for what I'm not, and let me suffer afterwards. And complain that nobody sees me. That nobody knows who I am, and blah, blah, blah. All that stuff. All right. Gisela. Channel 1858, channel of judgment. And channel 4130, the channel of recognition. So recognition and judgment. Recognition of feelings, recognition through feelings, splenic judgment, deep judgmental capacity. Here's somebody that's here to be recognized, to see what's wrong. Oh, are they good? I mean, 1858s, you take them into your house. You've just had 19 cleaning ladies do your house. You bring the 1858 into your house. They're there for 30 seconds, and they say, do you see all that dirt over there? I mean, an 1858 can spot something that's not correct so quickly. This is the fastest judgmental system in the world. Now, of course, the dilemma with being an 1858 is that if you don't play the projector game, you're going to be hated for it. Loathed for it. Nothing like an 1858 projector that volunteers a criticism. Wow. All hell breaks loose. Absolutely. The punishment that they get in return is horrendous. And the tragedy of all that is, and I like black humor, there you've got some idiot standing there. You're in 1858. You see that they're standing on a pothole and they're about to disappear. And you say to them, excuse me, you're standing in a very dangerous place. And the other person looks at them and, who the hell are you talking about? Leave me alone. You can tell them the most incredible thing. You can have the most transforming knowledge for them in that moment. And all you're going to meet is resistance. You bitch, shut up. What, I don't need this. Keep it to yourself. So if you're in 1858, and here's an 1858, and a 4130, the 4130 recognizes when people are on totally the wrong track. This is the beginnings of the human experiential way. You're a 4130. Some idiot is standing in front of you and you're saying, you're going in the wrong direction. And they tell you to mind your own business. Even though the next second they're going to step into the street and get hit by a bus. And it doesn't matter how good your advice is, they're not interested. See, if they ask you, you become a saint. How nice. Oh, she saved my life. She told me just what I needed to know, But if you're not asked, so you're here to be recognized for that potential, which means that you're here to wait, literally. Here to wait for somebody to ask you for correction, ask you for guidance. The other thing is in your design, you're very, very open through the center of your design. And fundamentally what that means is that groups are a terrible seduction for you and the worst possible place to be. If you only have minor activations, no definitions between the throat and the sacral, being in a group, being in a family, being in any kind of configuration, 3 to 5 people, that's not your place. I have very, very weak penta-activations. Right? Okay, and I have a family, right? I do the very best I can to be outside any group activity. I deal with my family one-on-one. The moment that we're in a group, I'm the local idiot. No joke. The moment I have no power, I have nothing. I'm not even a manifester anymore. I'm an inert wallet. Other than that, I'm nothing else. It's just the way that it is. And if I say, let's do this, everybody looks at me and he speaks. It's not like, oh, yeah, we're all going to do that. Great leadership. No. I spend most of my time in a room by myself. I'm a manifester. I don't want that. The moment it's the way I run my business. I never have that. I deal with people either virtually or one at a time. Because the moment you put me into a group, I'm no longer in charge of anything. No matter what it appears to be as a figurehead, I'm not in charge of anything. You step into a group environment, you stop having the power to be a projector. You lose it. You end up being hauled into those mechanics in which you're being pigeonholed into something and you're not being recognized anymore. You have to know how to put your hand up in the air and say, no, excuse me, no, I don't want this. And again, taking advantage of mechanics, I don't have a bad relationship with my family. We have a warm, loving relationship. All of that's fine. Because it's about being honest. It's about being correct. You cannot be what you cannot be. As a manifester with a closed aura, I cannot be some soft, fuzzy, warm creature. It's not possible. If I pretended that, it would be a terrible performance, because it's not what I am. There's just this closed aura. What the hell am I going to do? But if you explain that to your children, they get it. The moment, the best look on any teenager's face is when they see their parents' design. Children who know design. Oh, what a trip that is. I remember the look on my son's face when he looked at his mother and I. And he looked back and forth. And he looked at me and he looked back and forth. It was like, oh, now I get it. Because you do. You get it. And when you get it, it's great because you can just let go of all the crap. The whole thing that comes with not understanding is projection. You build up all these stories about what you think. And all that does is lead you to do things that you shouldn't be doing in the first place. It does. It leads to all kinds of problems. Instead of just accepting what you are and living it. We are always seduced by what we're not. Projectors are seduced by manifestation and generating. Projectors who are supposed to be outside the group are seduced by being inside the group. Oh, let me be one of all the others. And quick way to get lost. Janice, split definition. Unconscious 2551. Unconscious 2551 is an interesting thing because you've got ego projected authority. And everything about being an unconscious initiator is how aware you have to be of what you're doing in your life. Let me give you an example. You're an unconscious initiator and you're sitting with a bunch of friends. And you're just having a conversation. And you just got yourself a new yoga teacher. That kind of thing. Eh? And you mention it. You don't go into any great detail. You don't do any sales pitch. You don't do anything. All you do is mention it. Oh, I found this really interesting teacher. Blah, blah, blah. That day, those other people, they're going to be so incredibly interested in that. They just are. Because they have been initiated in that. And they go looking for that. Oh, I want that too. Oh, that must be good. Oh, that's going to be terrific. So unconscious initiators have a lot of influence on people. And if they don't understand that, that can really blow up on you. Because they leave their yoga teacher and go to the one you talked about. And they don't like the person. And then they blame you. And they do. They will blame you. They will say, that's all your fault. You said that this, and you go back in your head and you think, but I didn't try to convince them of that. I didn't try to get them to do this. I was just conversation. I was just mentioning that. That's what it is to be an unconscious initiator. You put things deeply inside of beings. Okay. But what you're really here to be recognized for, because it's the part of you that you're being recognized, because it's conscious, is your mind. And again, anyone who's a 63-4, what the other is expecting is an answer from you. This is the expectation. The 4 is the gate of answers, formulas. So if somebody's really recognizing you, what they're recognizing in you is that you can provide them with an answer. So if they ask you a question and you don't give them an answer, does your reputation suffer? Because they're expecting that you have an answer. Now, the danger is making up answers. Because making up answers is really easy, particularly if you're logical. Logical people are the people that lie the best. Because, like statistics, you can twist these things to give you whatever you like, okay? So you end up being a person under enormous pressure to deliver an answer, so you end up grabbing for straws, and sort of trying to put an answer together. Invitation heals all that. It's the magic of being a projector. You wait for the invitation. The recognition is going to be there. Yes, they're going to recognize the potential for answers. Not only that, a part of them is going to recognize that your answer may initiate them, because that's the real potential, the initiation that can come out of that answer. And it all begins with the same thing. It all begins with that invitation. You have the same thing in relationship to groups. That is, you've got a very weak penta, and you can see that this is basically the way it should run in the continuity. In the sense that, projectors are not really designed to be on that inside. So most projectors in their genetic continuity are going to have openness in that grouping area so that it's not what their nature is, but it is a deep conditioning attraction. Most projectors, because they feel deeply alienated in life, they do. They never really feel like they're like everybody else, which means like generators, basically. They never have that sense that they are being seen, that they are being recognized, and there's an assumption that the way to do that is to be embedded in some kind of group. If I join the club, everybody's going to, see me, connect with me, make me feel good, blah, blah, blah. You can run the club. It's the old Groucho Marx line. I would never belong to an organization that would have me as a member. Don't belong to any organizations that would have you as a member. Be the organization that brings in others, But be very careful about getting trapped in those things, because the moment you're trapped in a penta, the moment you're trapped in the small group, is the moment that you lose what is recognizable in you. In this case, with Janice's chart, because it's a weak penta, the moment that you're in the penta, nobody recognizes that you're an initiator, and nobody recognizes that you have the answers, and nobody gives a shit. So it doesn't matter whether you feel like, you can't get your thing. They don't see it. It's not their fault. You get into this very confined structure, and those aspects that you're here to be recognized for don't fit in anymore. So they don't see you. And then you've got these little bits and pieces that are in there, so all they want to do is get you to work on one of those bits and pieces. Manage you, put you in your place, make sure that you do your thing, and stay out of the way. And they don't see the rest. And of course, the family upbringing for a projector without awareness, this is what it leads to. It leads to those aspects in you that are there to be recognized. When you're in the family, they're just not recognized. My family has no idea what I do. I mean, my siblings and, this kind of thing. Because the moment that I'm in there, I'm exactly what I was when I was 8 years old. In the family construct, only being seen in those little bits and pieces and being orchestrated and conditioned to just stay in one of those places and shut up. The rest of it, we don't need that. We don't need your initiation, and we don't need your perfected form, and we don't need awakening. We don't need any of that shit. Shut up. Just stay in your little hole over here and be there. And it's what happens in families. Because as long as you don't have any penta strength, you don't have a leg to stand on in the family environment. You just don't. I have a family that's filled with penta people. They're penta forces. They rule the family. They just do. Because they belong in that construct and they fit in it. Nice for them. Not for me. Not for you. John, you're here to be an organizing thinker. That's what you're here to be recognized for. You're here to be recognized for your ability to organize the Maya, organize information, and that organizing information leads to the strength of your throat system, because fundamentally you're here to be an articulating being. I mean, most of the projectors you see that have defined throats, it's pointing right away to their capacity. That is, these are the ones that are here to provide instruction. They're the ones that are here to tell you things that they can't do. If you look at somebody's design and you see they have a defined throat, what you get to see is that they can tell you stuff, but they're not designed to do it. And that's not hypocrisy, which it often appears to be, particularly those who don't get what's going on. This is the projector gift, so it's your gift. That is, you're here to articulate organization. The 1762 is a judgmental channel. It's opinions backed up by facts. So you're here to express your opinions and your facts, and you're here to be recognized for that. So if someone isn't interested in your mind, if somebody says to you that they love your body, kill them. Okay? Because these are the wrong people for you, right? The only way you're going to be recognized is when people recognize you intellectually. There's no other way. And what they're really recognizing is your logic. This is what they're looking for. They're looking for a logic, that they can trust, that can help them to organize. So, for example, as a projector, you're here to guide people in the best way to be organized and to provide them with that kind of managerial advice. You're very open in terms of the penta. And I mean, when you think about what happens to a projector when they go into this, group phenomena. By the way, all of you in this puddle in here, I mean, all of these projector auras all together, none of you are being recognized. Other than the fact that technically I can look at your charts and see it. It's not like that's what's shining out in the aura. You're all stuck in these penta configurations. You're all stuck in these homogenizing greater auras. And whenever you're in that, you're just another lump of meat behind a desk. You're not that something different. You're not that recognizably different. But the moment that you're alone with somebody in the elevator, totally different movie. Because then you're out of the penta, and the moment you're out of the penta, your natural recognition material becomes obvious. In any kind of group aura, it's not. It's not. It's why whenever you see projectors at any kind of human design event, they're the ones that are checking everybody's design. They're the ones that are looking for what's there because they can't see it in the aura itself, because you can't just recognize it. Because the moment you try to recognize a certain aspect in any projector in this room, you got all the conditioning, all the other elements, you got all of the form principle organizing at work, and you all lose that potential. So you really have to be aware of your relationship to any kind of group environment. Okay, Jean-Pierre. Now here's a split. And again, remember, whenever you're looking at a split, you're always looking at particularly a basic split where one gate will make the difference in this design. This is somebody with a 1762, and they also have the channel of the transmitter, so the 44 and the 26, the channel of struggle, and the channel of emoting. Okay? So this is somebody that's is an individual transmitter. And they're here to be recognized for their individual transmission. In other words, they're here to be recognized for a creative process, because that's what individual transmission is really all about. And if they're not recognized for that individual transmission, they don't get the potential that's there for them in this life. Now, when you look at a split and you look at the gates that can connect them, these become the most powerful conditioning forces. In this case, it's the 21st gate. So here's somebody that can be deeply seduced by trying to find a way to control everything. Control the universe, control all those silly people out there that don't recognize them, take control of everything, and of course they can't. The moment they try to is the moment that they lose all of that. Again, here is somebody, classic example. If you look at this throat to the G center, not a single activation. Nothing in that pentaconstruct. Absolutely nothing. Totally open space. Nothing there. And you put this person inside of a group, and the moment you put this person inside of a group, they don't get recognized. They don't. Interesting thing to really think about. What happens to us? They don't. They end up being submerged in whatever the process happens to be. And again, like all projectors, they get taken advantage of. For whatever their skill set happens to be. But in terms of actual recognition, the only way they get recognition is if they're invited. Now, I want you to see it from the other end. Let's say that you're a projector. You know that groups are a dilemma for you. You know you lose your recognition, but somebody comes up to you and invites you into a group, and your authority says yes. Then it's perfect. No matter what I tell you, you have to see something. According to your strategy and authority, anything is possible. It's simply about whether it's correct for you. It's whether entering into it is correct for you. That person, like this person, who would accept an invitation and enter into a group, they're not going to feel unrecognized because that's where the invitation was. What they have to accept is that's what got them in. What keeps them there is something else. In other words, their relationship to whatever the task, the skill, or whatever the thing happens to be. But without the invitation, it doesn't work. So you can be very open. For example, family. That situation where you decide that you're going to go visit your family. Put a gun to your head now. Okay? Don't decide that you're going to go visit your family. Wait for the invitation. Wait for the invitation. And if they don't invite you, the hell with them. But if they invite you, then you can go into those environments. You're being recognized. You can go in if you're going in according to your strategy and authority. You don't want to stay there forever. But you can go in and it's not unhealthy for you. But the moment that you barge into any group, the moment you put yourself in that kind of situation, you lose all recognition. Most projectors are dying for recognition. So they hope that they can create it, by manifesting, by putting themselves in certain situations to try to get that recognition, and it simply doesn't work. Okay, Kevin. Channel 1858, channel of judgment, and then going through the tribal circuitry. The 19 to the 49 channel of synthesis, and the 4037, the channel of community. So you're one of these beings that's here to be recognized for the way in which your judgment can be applied to the community. But obviously, the way your judgment can be applied to the community can operate in many different ways depending on what the entry point is. I mean, you're always somebody here that is here to assess the value of the bargain. Always. You're always here to bring judgment to that. You're always here to challenge bargains that are not correct. In other words, you're looking at the basic bonds that are there in the community and bringing judgmental potential to that. Now, you're incredibly weak in the penta. I mean, incredibly weak. So the moment that you enter into a group situation, those aspects that are so powerful in your design are ignored. And it's not like it's anybody's fault. It just doesn't fit in. Most of you, what you're here to be recognized for is outside of that zone in the middle. So the moment you get into that kind of auric configuration, all that stuff on the outside's all forgotten. Those people that you're dealing with inside, they don't see that at all. So when you're in a group, the only thing that they see from you is that you're a harmonizer. You got the 28th gate, hanging 28th gate, unconscious. The 29th gate. The 29th gate in the penta is the gate that provides the glue that holds the auras of everybody together. So, you end up being glue. You have to be there, they will tell you. And you have to be there not to provide judgment, not to assess the value of the contract and the social arrangement, none of that stuff. You're there to be glue. We need the glue. And then you don't get seen. And the moment a projector is not recognized is when the projector begins to suffer. You just begin to suffer. There is nothing more profound for a projector than not being seen. If you're not recognized, your purpose in life is being denied. And the easiest way to lose your purpose, the easiest way to lose your identity, is to have those forces around you that bind you to that. Fact is, as a projector, your main relationship is always that one other. And I'm not speaking of just only one person when I say that. That one other that is friend, that one other that is lover, that one other that is colleague, whatever the case may be. But it's that one at a time connection where you get the recognition and you're allowed in that sense to fulfill your possibility. But again, always remember, if you are invited into those situations and your authority says yes, there's nothing wrong with it. You will go in and you will get out and it will be all right because you're getting in based on the recognition. The dilemma is, like in Kevin's case, if you're recognized for being a judge, you're judgmental, you can do those things. So that's why you're invited in. But when you get inside, because it's not part of that internal construct, it loses its very power, even though you were recognized. In other words, your judgments aren't taken as rule from on high. They're things that everybody is sort of processing. Is this going to work? Is this really true? Or, Again, it's what happens the moment that you step into a group environment as a projector, that you automatically lose what you're there to be recognized for. And it totally defeats the purpose of why you're here. See, generators are here to be in these, these grouping things. It's their aura. I mean, when you see generators together, you get it right away. They're all deep in each other's aura, and this is their thing. And they're naturally aligned to pentas, even if they don't have penta activations. It's like, we're all in this together. And when you're a projector, and you're living in a world dominated by generators who say, oh, you've got to belong here, you've got to fit in here, it becomes very, very difficult unless you're aware, difficult to free yourself from that kind of a trap. All right. Lyubov. Here's a split definition. And split definition, 4323 conscious, structuring people, genius to freak people. They're here to be recognized for their explanations. And an 8-1, so this is somebody unconscious, somebody that's here to make a contribution of explanation. Now that's split off. There's a wide split. It's split off to the 1949 unconscious. So here is an emotional projector. So let me talk about the emotional projector for a moment. To be an emotional being it demands an enormous amount of discipline. It just does. And the discipline is fundamentally patience. It's all about patience. If you're an emotional being, you've got to wait out the wave. If you don't wait out the wave, which is just time, then you can't be clear. But it also says something else about the dilemma of accepting a projector's life. If you're an unemotional projector, the invitation is something you can deal with in the moment. Spontaneous. Invitation, yes, no. It's right there. But if you're an emotional projector, even when the invitation comes, you have to go like this. Not now. Let me process it. Give me time. If you're an emotional projector, nobody can push you. Nobody is allowed to push you, rush you. This is not what you're here for. And that in that getting your deal, the yes but thing, if you're an emotional projector, you have the potential of getting the best deal of all. Because rejection is such a seduction. Eh? You're an emotional projector and somebody says to you, I want to invite you to this terrific thing and it would be great to work with you underneath. Of course, their subconscious is going, slave, I need the slave, but whatever. They're inviting you into this terrific thing and you go to them, I have to process this. Very nice, interesting, I'm going to process this. They want you to make that decision right then and there. This is a great offer. I'm offering you something terrific. You should be jumping at this. That kind of thing. The reality is, by going like this, what actually happens is the other person goes away and says, I better up the ante. I better offer them more. I better make it more exciting. It looks like they're not going to take it. Rejection is incredibly powerful. Most people are afraid of it, and emotional people are afraid of it the most. They are. If you're an emotional person and somebody invites you, and you're a projector after all, and they invite you, there's these bells and sirens and rockets going off. It's like, wow, I've been invited. I'm going to say yes right now, because if I don't say yes right now, I may have to wait the rest of my life for an invitation. That kind of thing. And then you really get into trouble, because you have no idea. Emotional people, no truth in the now, no truth in the now. You're emotional, you're in this class, you have no idea what the hell's going on. And you won't for months. For months. Because you're going to process it through your emotional system. You're on a certain place in your wave right now, which means you're taking me in with a certain filter. That may be a good filter, a bad filter, an in-between filter, whatever the hell it is. Tomorrow, the filter's different. Tomorrow, how you feel about this is going to be different than what it is now, and it's going to be different the day after tomorrow and the day after that, and there are certain things that you heard today that you go, oh yeah, tomorrow you're going to go, what was that? What was that thing that I said oh yeah to? I can't remember that thing. What was that? And then you think, oh, hell, it's lost, damn it. A week later, you're in the same place in your wave that you were here when you got that aha, and you go, oh, yeah, now I got it. It's what it is to be emotional. There is no truth in the now. If you're an emotional person and you get a telephone call, you actually think you're hearing everything. You know? You get this emotional call. You know, you're on the phone, you're an emotional being. All you're doing is reacting to where your wave is. You know, so there you hear something that somebody's saying that sounds bad. You never have the time to hear what's good or the rest of the conversation. All you hear is that one thing that actually hits where you are on your wave, and off you are on that part of your wave, and the rest of it is lost. It's the next day or the day after you go, oh yeah, but they also said, you know, after you've gone through this whole heavy thing and this whole emotional trip, and, you know, being an emotional being is about understanding that you rule. It's what it is to be emotional. Everything's on your time. Nobody else's. Your time. So you're an emotional projector and somebody's got an invitation, good for them. They can wait. You know, if what they want is important enough for them, they're not going to run away. And if you tell somebody to wait, and they don't wait, good riddance. Because they're never going to respect you. They're never going to treat you correctly. They're never going to see you for who you are. Every time an emotional person makes a decision in the moment, whoever they're dealing with has lost respect for them. It's just the way that it works. You know, it's so easy to manipulate emotional people. Oh, press those buttons, watch them fly. You know? All right, Mark. Channel of struggle. People who are here to be recognized not for their struggle, but for their struggle for purpose. You know, the channel 2838's got a lousy reputation. Eh? It's between the spleen and the root. It's a channel of struggle. So most people who have the channel of struggle, they're the ones that can't find their keys, and, you know, the computer doesn't work when it should, and, you know, all those kinds of things that happen with struggle people. Yet at the same time, everything about the channel of struggle is that it is here to struggle for purpose. For purpose. So you're here to be recognized for your struggle to find that purpose, which means that you can be here to be recognized as a guide to help others with their struggle to purpose. Now, at the same time, you're an abstract thinker, 1156, and an abstract thinker with an abstract identity, the 3313, the channel of remembering, the prodigal. You know, these are beings that are here to be deeply experiential. And out of their experience comes the wisdom to be able to remember the way things have worked in order to help people understand. You know, if you're an abstract being and you're a projector, you're here to educate people about the nature of experience. You know, what the experience is, not theoretical. It's about exactly what an experience brings or what it can bring as an example. And again, here's an example of somebody with a 31-7. This is a penta channel. So it's very, very easy for this person to get pulled into a penta. But when they get pulled into the penta, the only thing they're going to be recognized for is that 31-7. And in the penta, it's not about being the prodigal. In the penta, it's about accounting. Accounting. You know, looking after the books. Checking and making sure that, you know, people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Counting the beans. You know, and here is somebody that's here to find purpose, you know, and be able to guide you towards purpose, and you bring them into a penta and they become a bean counter. You know, and they lose all that. See, you're all about recognition. If you don't set yourself up to be recognized, you're not going to be recognized. If you lose yourself in those group environments, you're not going to be recognized. You're not. You're going to be pigeonholed. And either like this being, like Mark here, that's going to be stuffed into a kind of, work that is really not their nature, or you're going to end up being micromanaged because you have no definition in the penta, and you got all these other people inside the group telling you what you should do, and you're the projector. I mean, the next time somebody blurts out to you what they think you should do, smack them. You just whack them. Good Zen slap. I'm a projector. Even if they don't know what it means, it might be fun. Try it. Don't tell me what to do. You're not here to be told what to do. You're not. You're not. You're not here to be controlled. You're not. You're supposed to be at the top of the hierarchy. You're supposed to be the guiding light. Da-da-da-da. You're not supposed to be under the thumb of the others, the group, the family, the organization. I mean, think about what happens to a projector when they go to church. No, just as an example of what happens to projectors the moment that they step out of what is correct for them. It is so easy to be homogenized. Totally homogenized and pigeonholed and put into, your thing that has nothing to do with what you're about, what you're for, and get you locked into something else. Groups are always trying to get projectors to be generators. It's what happens to a projector in a group, because the penta is a generator entity. So it expects everyone in the penta to be generative. So the moment you're a projector and you're inside the penta, they all have a job for you. And your parents, who are sick and tired of having a job for you that you could never do. I had a job for you, you couldn't do it. They're always doing that. They're always trying to, define what you're here to do, and you're supposed to be the guide. Look out for groups. Maria. 1949, 4037, just saw that. Split off from the 3313, and interesting because we just had one where the hook was the 29, missing the control. In this design, it's the 45. It's the sense of, I'm entitled, aren't I? The 45th gate is the gate of the empress, the emperor, the pasha. I want to be a pasha. I want to be the empress. Blah, blah, blah. All of that stuff. What it basically means is that you want everybody to reward you. Because the 45th gate is the only gate that asks for taxes. It's great if you're a projector and you've got the 45. You're on the other side. You all owe me. I'll guide you. You owe me. Pay your dues. But when you have the 21 and you don't have the 45, it's like, nobody pays me. I don't get paid for what I'm good at. I don't get paid for all of these things. All right. You're here to be recognized for experiential knowledge. Again, the 3313. And again, when you get put into a group, you become the bean counter. In other words, the 3313 is the group's police person. This is what the 3313 does. You take a 3313, you put them inside of a group, and they're the ones that go, you're being bad. And you're not doing your job. All these kinds of things. This is the 3313. They're the ones who have all the secrets. They're the ones that know what's really going on inside of the group. And that becomes their only job. Well, that's not your only definition. And the part of you that's here to understand the bargain, the deal, community relationships, being able to help the community, being able to provide proper principles for the community, helping the community understand what it needs, all of that stuff isn't recognized at all. The only thing that gets recognized is that you can point your finger inside the group based on that, cubbyhole, that's the job for you. we get pulled away from our essence all the time. The only people that really belong in the penta are generators that have penta definition. These are the ultimate group people. I mean, this is the perfection, of group. Enveloping auras, generative, waiting for some alpha to tell the group what to do. This is how you make a business work. You fill the penta up with those forces, and then you put a projector on the outside, and the projector guides that energy. You can't do that when you're on the inside. The moment you're on the inside, you lose your power to recognize, you lose your power to see the whole, you get dragged into some cubbyhole you can't get out. But again, remember, if your strategy and authority allows you, you can enter into any of these situations and not be harmed. You can do time inside the group and not lose your basic identity if you're invited in, if it's correct in the first place. Well, there's a lot of you. Yeah, Meg, you had the same thing. I don't have to repeat this story, do I? You have the same thing. Can I tell you something else? Yeah, I can. You're actually, the groups are incredibly seductive for you. And they're incredibly seductive because you have activations in every single channel in the penta, as well as having penta definition. And because you're a tribal person, you're 4037, that there is all this pull on you to be brought into the group and to feel good inside the group, which of course does not make you feel good, because it really isn't, the way in which you can fulfill yourself. As a projector, given that kind of a design configuration, you're very powerful in being able to help groups. You're very powerful in being able to help tribes in order to be able to realize whatever their bargains happen to be, because you see them. I mean, bargain people are great. They always know what the deal is. This is what you're here for. Anybody that's a 4037, remember, that's our background frequency. So if you're a 4037 in this incarnation, you're really in tune to the frequency. And the frequency is a frequency that says, look, what we have to do here is make sure that everybody manages to get the benefit, and this is all something that needs to be contracted and arranged. The great difficulty for the 4037s in this life is that because they're emotional, if they're not correct, they never know what the deal really is. I mean, if you're a 4037, the only thing that matters in your life is loyalty. It's the only thing that ever matters, is if those beings in your life are going to be loyal to you or not. And, it's one of the things to understand about the emotionality of the 4037. It's there to create the deal. So you're an emotional being, and you create, you make an arrangement with somebody. You can't just make an arrangement. If you're a young couple coming to me, and one of you has the 4037, I go, prenuptial, right now, get it done, sign that contract. Because if you don't sign that contract, as you get down the road, it's going to look like there's something wrong with the deal. You're emotional. Being emotional means that you don't really understand the deal in the moment. You understand the deal over time, so you got to wait till you're clear before you make the arrangement. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Otherwise, the other person doesn't really know what's going on. I've had many 4037s in my life think that they have a deal with me. I mean, they think they have a deal with me. But what their deal is with me is not one I know. It's one that their emotions lead them to. So I make an arrangement with an emotional 4037 that they want something and I'm going to give it to them. There's going to be a moment emotionally for them where that's not enough. Or there should have been more, or it should have been different. That the deal wasn't just that there were other things implied in that bargain that were not stated at the moment, that the emotional person latches onto and says, yeah, but they're not fulfilling their end of the deal. So as an emotional person who's a 4037, make sure that you take your time before you get into anything. And every 4037 has to ask the same question. What's in it for me? What does this cost? What's in it for me? What do I have to do in relationship to the other person? What do they really expect? What the hell is the deal? And until you're clear about the deal, don't make it. Because nothing more upsetting as a 4037 than a deal gone sour. Then you feel so bitter, and used and, all that stuff. All right, Nancy, you're here for your ideas. You're here to be recognized for your ideas. Not only recognized for your ideas, but the innocence of them, which is a lovely thing. I mean, this is a totally unconscious 1156, the channel of seeking, the channel of ideas. So basically, you're here to be recognized for ideas. Now, that's something that can be very powerful for a projector. Because ideas translate into income. I mean, ideas are one of the most powerful things to sell. Turn on the television and watch the commercials, I mean, this is what we do on this planet. We sell ideas. So you're a natural idea person. You're here to be recognized for your ideas, even though you yourself don't know where they come from, because it's all unconscious. Yet at the same time, if I look at your penta configuration, you're somebody that can get so lost in the penta. And your ideas are never, ever, ever going to be recognized. And in the penta, this is a design of somebody that other people are going to want to manage. It's like what happens to me in the penta. My family wants to manage me. They just do. It's a natural thing. If you don't have strong penta activations, those people that you're in a penta with, they're automatically going to try to control what it is that you do. They're going to make sure that you have some kind of fixed responsibility that has nothing to do with you. To be an idea person is something that can be very beautiful, except when you try to trust them yourself. If you've got an idea mind, your ideas aren't for you. They're never going to bring you anything but grief. The ideas are for the others. And the moment you're recognized as an idea person, then you can begin to distribute ideas for profit, at the material level. Or deliver ideas because you're a humanitarian at a personal level. Be able to stimulate others. After all, that's what you're here for. You're here to be recognized for being able to stimulate others with ideas. And of course, most human beings don't know. I mean, think about it. As a projector, if you're an idea person, you've got all these generators with all this built-up energy, most of them doing things that are unhealthy for them, waiting for some kind of idea. What should I do with all of this generator energy? And of course, this is the classic situation for a projector to step in and say, I got a great idea for you, when they're asked. If you blurt out that great idea to them and they haven't asked, they're not going to pay any attention to it. Even though it's a fabulous idea. They're not even listening. I mean, it's the thing that's so frightening for projectors, that the other just doesn't even listen. Because they don't recognize you. They don't recognize what you're here to bring. They don't accept that they are here to be guided. Ask any generator, and they will tell you, that they're not particularly excited about the idea that projectors are going to guide them. I mean, they're not. And part of that I understand, because most projectors are more fucked up than most generators. They're more deeply conditioned. There's enormous dilemmas in terms of the way their auras work. They're very, very easily distorted in their process. It doesn't build a lot of confidence for a generator, in terms of saying, this is the person that's going to guide me. Are you kidding? See, only when you're operating correctly do you really get the benefit of the built-in integrity that can be there for what it is to be a projector. I mean, after all, you are at the top of the hierarchy, even though you don't perform at that level. I mean, it's where you are in evolutionary terms. It's about getting you up to speed. It's about getting to that point where you can begin to demonstrate, what has been laid out there as an evolutionary development. And again, from my taste that I gave you this morning about where we're all going, what are we going to do if we don't have, projectors finally maturing into their role? Because it's essential. It's essential for that guidance to be there. It's essential for beings to have those that they can recognize, that they can get guidance from, particularly all those generators out there who do need something to respond to. And it's only when that is done correctly that it's going to work. There is no other way. Paulo. Here's an example of a 4037, no other definition. One of those things you get to see in projectors. And here's somebody that's here to be recognized for the communal bargain. Because it's always about the bargain. What's the deal? If you're a projector and you carry the 4037, you're the one who's here to recognize deals. It's what you're here to recognize. You're here to recognize whether the bargains, the arrangements work or not. And why? And all the things that go with that. This is the underlying stability of any community, is bargain. It's bargain. And you see, if you're a projector and you're recognized for that, then you're allowed to establish proper bargains. If you're not recognized for that, you just suffer from disloyalty. You do. And you suffer from all kinds of problems in the very thing that you're here to be recognized for. And this is a design of somebody who's very, very weak in the penta. No power in the penta. Simply somebody who's going to be stuck into their role. And the moment that they're stuck into that role, that they're going to be managed within the penta. I know those situations where I'm in my family penta and it's my children who are organizing my life. And they just are. They're just organizing my life. The moment you're in the penta, you automatically are going to be given a specific function within the community that has nothing to do with your gifts. Nothing. It only has to do what's there in the penta itself. So, when I look at this design, for example, there's a 46, a hanging unconscious 46. Now, the 46 gate is a harmonizing gate. It's a harmonizing gate. In a group, what it does is it makes people feel better about each other. So, you end up as this person who gets stuck in the group, and all you're trying to do is help everybody get along. You're no longer who you're supposed to be. Your only job inside the penta is to keep everything cool and relaxed and everything okay. That's not who this person is. It's what happens to them when they're in a penta. Projectors, you're not being limited because there's family or associates or whatever. It's about being aware. It's not about getting upset that you notice certain things in those group situations that have nothing to do with you, that try to push you into certain areas. This gives you a chance to wake up to that and say, no, I'm not going there. This is just the way this mechanism works. It has nothing to do with me. I don't have to do that. I'm not here to be the one, in reference to this chart, I'm not here to be the one that's given the job of being the harmonizer. That's what the penta does. But that's not what I'm about. I'm about recognizing whether the bargain is correct or not. And whether the deal is correct or not. Whether the community is served by that. And all the things that go with that channel. It's not about having a, unidimensional focus in one particular thing that you get locked to. You've all had this growing up. If you look at the gates that you have hanging, that are there between the throat and the sacral center in the middle, you can see every time that you're in your family, Every time you're in that kind of an environment, what becomes the thing that presses you, that takes you away? Those little activations, this is where you get cornered. This is where you get given those responsibilities within the penta that have nothing to do with you, and you get treated that way. And the worst thing is the expectation. You know, you're a projector and you're in the penta. The moment you're in the penta, there's a pentic expectation that you're supposed to fulfill that thing that's there. And there's a part of you who's always rebelling. You know, there's a part of you as a child that the moment you go out of your house, you actually get to be you. You leave behind this conditioning within the penta. And every time you walk back into the house, it's like, wow, I'm again being reduced to whatever that particular thing happens to be. And you can't get out of it. You can't. I mean, in my pentic configuration, I have the 7th gate, and I have the 1st and 2nd gate. So the moment that I was ever in my family, inside the family, I was always the unfulfilled role potential of creativity. You know, he's talented, but he's useless. Eh? I mean, that was my father's attitude. You know, he's talented, but he's useless. Because if you see me within my penta, I'm talented, but useless. I mean, really, if that's how I had to live my life, only inside of that penta, that's what I would be. Unfulfilled talent. You know, and that, after a while, that weighs on you. You know, because if you're not really a penta person, you have a channel in the penta. You know, you have a channel in the penta. Everybody is like in the family is like, wow, hey, you're a force. You know, you're really the thing. You know, you make it all work. You're terrific. But you know, if you just have hanging gates in the penta, you know, your mother looks at you and goes like this. You know, it's like, you know, there's all these, oh, he could have been so wonderful if it wasn't just all this talent going nowhere. Because they don't see it. They can't see it. Now, every once in a while, you're one-on-one with them. You know? And those are those moments where they catch glimpses. It's sort of like, oh, maybe there's something there. But then the moment you go back into the penta, it's lost again. You know, you go back into the set configuration and the set way that it works in. Life can be a bitch. It's better to be rich. Randy. I saw this before, too. 4323, 31-7. So a leader that explains and a transmitter. And this is somebody that has the 31-7, the leadership, the channel of leadership, which is a defined channel in the penta. Okay? And everything about the defined channel in the penta is all about ultimately being given the responsibility of planning. This is a thinking transmitter. So basically what happens to these children, because it's the best way to see it, you're a 31-7, you're stuck in the penta, you're a projector, the only thing you can plan for is your escape. That's all you ever do, is plan for the escape. How the fuck do I get out of here? Eh? How can I go from 12 to 18 in 3 months so I can get the hell out of here? You know? I mean, it's all about, I got a plan to escape because this is not for me. And of course, that plan to escape can be quite heavy because it can lead you into all kinds of things that lead to escape, you know, at every single level. You know, literally, you know, to the point of dropping out of life. I mean, anything to get out of that. You know, you have to see that the moment you get put into the penta as a projector, there's this enormous castration that takes place. You know, who you are is simply cut off. And either there's these little remnants or these false zones, like being a 31-7 in the family and you're a projector. You just want to get the hell out. You know, you don't want to go through their plans because, of course, you're there with them. You know, you don't want to get stuck in being the one that decides the family's future and everybody working together. And no, it's, let me out. How do I escape? Which doesn't lead to great relationships within the family. It doesn't. And then you have your parents looking at your penta configuration saying, she's really useless. What are we going to do? You know? I mean, what are we going to do? And she's lazy. She's always complaining. She always says she's tired. You know, what are we going to do with her? Maybe we should get her on an upper habit or something. Send her to a therapist, you know. Give her all kinds of allopathic medicine. Let's see if we can bring some life into her because she's useless and lazy. And because inside the penta, projectors are not seen very well. They're not. They're not. You know? All you get is this tiny little way in which the other projects on you as to what they think you are, and the rest is forgotten. I mean, projectors have a horrible time growing up. They do. You know, because the penta is what you grow up in. It's the thing that defines you. It's still a horror in my life to go home. You know? I mean, I love my mother. She's 98 years old. She lives down the road in Hamilton, right? I mean, I don't want to be there too often. You know, and I love her. She's a terrific, terrific creature. But the moment that I step into that aura, I get all these pentic processes. You know? I mean, she still figures that I'm that talent that didn't quite know how to get anywhere. Because she doesn't know how to see me beyond that. I mean, there's a part of her that assumes that my good fortune is an act of God. You know? It was not something that I did, you know? She doesn't know how it happened, but she's glad that it happened, you know? Because within the pentic confine, you do not see it. You can't. I mean, I never look at my children that way, because if I looked at my children that way, in terms of the way I experience them in the family construct, I would never see them. I would only see the limitation that's there in the penta, and that would mark them for the rest of their lives. Because that's how you experience them. It's how your parents, how our parents experienced us. And those of us that are non-energy, open sacral beings, those of us who are not designed, not designed to be penta creatures, growing up in a family is really a horror. It's a horror. Because you're never getting the support. You're never getting recognition. You're never being seen for your true potential. You're always being cubbyholed into whatever that little penta aspect happens to be, and the rest of it is out there. And you know, the parents that are so surprised at what happens to their children. I never thought that he would become, or I never thought that she would do that, or I never thought that was in her, I never thought that was in him. All of that stuff, usually negative. You know, the surprise when the child runs away and says, "You're horrible and I hate you," and you know. And within the penta context, they're going, what happened? She was always such a useless, tired girl, you know? Where did she get all this juice, you know? How come she's doing that now? Where the hell did that come from? And they don't want to give that up because it's the only way they know you. They don't know you any other way. Your parents only know you in a penta context. They honestly don't know you any other way. Yeah, they have those, moments of one-on-one. But, growing up in a family, you just get cubbyhole. And they never forget it. My mother's 98. I'm 61, right? It's still the same thing. It's never going to change. There's nothing that I can do about it. Nothing. All I can do is laugh, and I do, because it's so insane. And then you just get to see the mechanism. Yeah, there's nothing you can do. Okay, there's nothing I can do. What I do is try to avoid it. This is what I try to do. I try to avoid it in a nice way. Yes, I love you, Ma, I'm not coming. Really simple. Keep it at a level where, we can at least have a certain individuality in all of this. It's frightening when you understand mechanics. Look, you have to recognize something. Human beings are not expected to wake up. You're expected to be lemmings, fucked up till the end, over the cliff, and to hell with you. Because this is just the way that it works. The vast majority of human beings are never going to wake up. They're never going to have the privilege that allows them even to begin a process of self-reflection. They're not going to have the privileges that give them that possibility in their lives. It's not going to happen. Most human beings are just deeply, deeply conditioned, and that's the way that it goes. And you see, this is a great way of conditioning beings. I mean, when I describe it in this way and you see the horror of it, it's something else. But to recognize that this is the way that all families work. All of them. I mean, all of them. And think about all those children, let alone what type they are. All those children that are only being seen in certain ways. That their whole life is being determined by that. You know, you have a family, you've got 3 children. One of them is real penta. That's the child that always has the best of everything. They're the ones that have the best relationship with their parents. They're the ones that are seen as being, whoa, they're terrific, blah, blah, blah. You know, and the other siblings look at them and say, jerk, you know. Because they see them outside of the penta and think, you know, what's this? Within the penta, you know that. Most of you who have siblings know this story. How your parents looked at one child and saw them in a certain way, and you know yourself that they were useless and stupid, you know, and yet at the same time your parents think that they're, you know, that they're the second coming of Michelangelo. And I mean, you know it's insane. And you think, okay, it's favoritism, or it's this, or it's not. It's penta. It's penta. You know, and outside of the penta, you meet with them in a cafe, and you think, my God, you know, this is not the reincarnation of Michelangelo, you know? This is not. This is an inept being, you know, really lost, blah, 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 all that stuff. But to the family, oh, saint. And then you're a projector, and you go in there with your openness, you know, and the families are always saying the same thing. Well, we had hopes. It was promising about 8 seconds after they were born, and then it all went downhill. You know, they're very, very limited. I really don't know what to do with them, you know. They're really, really limited. And it doesn't seem like they can make anything of their lives. You know, we're going to have to do it for them, you know. We're going to have to look after them, and, you know, we're going to have to help them, and unfortunately, a lot of that leads to things that are really unhealthy, therapies and all kinds of stuff that, you know, are deeply damaging and distorting. Okay, Ruth. 6447, and then it's split off from the 3313. So, first of all, you're here to be recognized for your capacity to make sense out of things. Now, that's often very difficult for being a 6447, because usually, if you're not correct, you're so confused, you can't make sense out of your own life. Never, let alone make sense out of anybody else's. Eh? But in fact, when you're correct, this is what you're here to be recognized. You can make sense out of things for others, and at the same time, you're a 3313, and of course that means that you carry the secrets. It means that you have this capacity of being able to guide people experientially. Experiential guides are very important. You have logical guides. You know, we've seen a couple so far in this group, and you have experiential guides. The logical guide is theoretical. They say, look, here is the program, here is the pattern. If you try this pattern, you'll see that this will lead you to something. Experiential guides say, I've been there, I've done that, don't you do that because it doesn't work. Or I've been there and this is the way it can work, or whatever. In other words, it's rooted in experiential advice rather than theoretical advice. Yet it's still part and parcel of what it is to be a projector. That is, you know, as a projector, you're here to guide. This is what you're here to be recognized for, to be an experiential guide, which means the quality of your experience in this life is going to be the resource that you're going to work with. So, you know, if the experiences in your life are not correct for you, you're not going to have the right history to be able to tap in experientially and to be able to make sense for others. Now, again, in your design, because you have a penta channel, the 3313, and it is unconscious, it's very easy for you to get put into that role of being, a guardian in the family, the one that has to do the bean counting, the one that has to check that everybody is okay. These are usually the children that become the babysitters, even if they're the youngest. They're usually the ones that are given control of making sure that everything's okay. Watch your sister, make sure that she doesn't do that junk again, whatever the case is. See, groups. If you're a projector, a group is something that is about an opportunity for you to lead, not something that you need to belong to. It's an opportunity to lead, not something to belong to. And getting into that belonging, getting locked into that group, all that happens is that your whole recognition mechanism goes out the window. It's gone. Just gone. And you get cubbyholed into those activations that are there in the group configuration. And you can't get out. You can't. It's a very, very powerful force. It's why projectors specifically have so many problems as children being raised in pentas with unaware parents who don't understand what that's about. I mean, it makes an enormous difference if you're a projector child and you have an aware parent that understands that you're a projector, that understands that, those are not great situations for you, so you don't sit that child down with you and your partner and a sibling and try to work things out. You don't do that. You deal with them one-on-one. You invite them. You establish their integrity. You get them to begin to live out what is correct. My concern about young projectors is spirit. Bitterness is something that ravages spirit. If you're constantly not seen as a projector child, if you're constantly rejected for what it is you are, and you're constantly being conditioned to be something else, that's incredible bitterness that arises in life. And it sets up a whole scenario for you that there is an assumption that nobody sees you. Nobody. That nobody recognizes you. And then you get into, well, if nobody recognizes me, I'm going to be a manifester. Or I'm going to be a generator. I'll get them to recognize me, Susanna, judgment and the channel of community, and again, split off from each other. Your great seduction is fantasy. And for projectors, that can be dangerous, because projectors tend to be unfulfilled in their process, and looking for the fantasy becomes more important than life itself. It can be something that's very risky. You're here to be recognized for your judgmental capacity. Look, if we don't have the 1858, nothing ever gets challenged. Nothing. Nothing. It's dangerous. I have my roots in science. If you do not challenge, then nothing can be substantiated. It's why I don't tell people to believe me. I tell them to experiment with a logical process. It's an empirical thing. You experiment with it, you find out for yourself. And it's something to understand about the 1858s. They're here to challenge patterns. Patterns. If you've got a politician that's standing up and saying, tomorrow's going to be a better day, it's the 1858 that says, prove it, show me how, what's the pattern, what's the logic, and you can't fool me because I will know. And the dilemma, again, of the 1858, because I've been there before in this afternoon, is that, of course, it is such a wonderful gift, and they are people that are really disliked. I mean, anyone who carries the 1858, they're disliked out of fear that they're going to blurt out some criticism, some judgment that hasn't been asked for. Everybody walks around on eggshells around an 1858, because they don't want the blast. And that's the dysfunction of the 1858. When an 1858 is correct, and they can keep all that stuff inside, and they don't have to manifest it or generate it or put it out, That's when they get deep respect for being a problem solver. 1858s are here to deal with problems in the patterns, to recognize them, to fix them. This is the gift. But again, it doesn't do any good if you blurt it out. It doesn't do any good if you're not playing the projector game. And again, in this kind of design where you've got the 40-37, the bargain and community, and you've got judgment, you've got all that stuff that's sitting there, wonderful things to be recognized for. Being able to challenge the arrangements, being able to see what's really fair or not, legal or not, all kinds of things that are built into that. And instead of that, you got a very, very open center of your chart. So easy to get lost inside of the penta. All of that's forgotten. It's not there. And you see, if you're an 1858 child, your mother doesn't want to talk to you by herself, or your father, because they know they're going to get it. I mean, they just do. They rather have you at the family dinner table where you're a slave. Eh? I mean, the great enslavement place in any family is the dinner table. Not only are you being conditioned by the improper food and the way in which you're eating, because all of us have a unique dietary regimen. We're not intended, all of us, to eat together. This is not the way things work. And at the same time, the moment you're sitting at that family table, you've got all those auras around there. You've got yourself a perfect penta, I hated it as a kid. I mean, it was awful. My dietary regimen is calm. Calm. My father, his idea of a dinner time was to use dinner time as a provocative experience. He loved to argue. This is where there were political discussions and philosophy and, him having these things with his children. It always got overheated. I hated it. I went through my entire upbringing with gas. From sitting at a family table where it was never calm. I mean, never calm. Never calm. That was my thing. And then I'm not getting what's right for me in terms of dietary nutrition, so I'm being really homogenized as not self. And then I'm being stuck in that penta. What did you do today, you lazy bastard? And there I am going, I don't want to get into this. I would just like calm, But then again, inside of the penta, I'm talent that has no potential. There's nowhere for it to go. I have a role and I can't perform it. So I was all talk, and I was never going to get anything done. I mean, it's hilarious. I mean, it wasn't hilarious when I was a kid, eh? And those are the kinds of things that you carry through your life, with, oh, that was terrible what they did to me and blah, blah, blah. But there's no blame or fault. I don't blame them. They didn't know any better. They didn't know how it worked. I mean, nobody in their generation knew how it worked. And if you don't know how it works, you don't know what you're doing. They love their children. They didn't want to hurt them. The parents that I joke about in these various scenarios, it's not like they didn't like us or, they didn't want the best for us or all that kind of stuff. They just didn't know what was going on. They had no idea. They had no idea that they couldn't even see their own children. I mean, no idea, because their vanity is, oh, I know him. He's the one that can't manifest his talent. Do you know what I mean? I mean, this is the thing that you get from that. You're only remembered in that context. It's frightening when you think about it, I mean, it's, this is about raising consciousness, after all. It's about understanding not simply about yourself, but being able to see what happens to our children and being able to provide advice and being able to provide guidance. As projectors, you're different. You have to begin to live your difference. You have to begin to see the traps. These are traps, these complex auras. They're always traps for you, unless you're on the outside running the show. And then it's okay, because then you're fulfilling what your potential is. Your potential is to see the way in which energy can be organized and can be efficient on this plane. You're very good at providing the guidance depending on your design, whatever your configuration happens to be. In Susanna's case, you're somebody that can provide judgment, can provide the right direction for a group to take in terms of challenging something, or a direction for the group to take in terms of their relationships to each other, in which this can be the arbitrator looking out from the outside and seeing what needs to be done. Somebody who said consultant before, this is basically what it is to be a projector. It's the cosmic consultant. You're always there to provide that guidance service if you're recognized for it. And again, that recognition is something that arises out of your correctness and arises out of being aware of your social environment. As a projector, you have to see that if you're invited over to somebody's house and you're a stranger, you're new in a neighborhood, if you go in there and you're in the group, nobody sees you. Nobody sees you. You have to get that. All they're going to get is that little component of you that fits into that group aura. And out of that, they're going to pass judgment on you. They will. The only way that you can introduce yourself into an environment, one-on-one. One-on-one. That's the only way that when you're meeting somebody, because of your gift, of your aura, they really pay attention. And they take your aura in very deeply. And they take it in from the matrix that's you, rather than, being confined by a group identity. And then you get seen. And then you can be recognized. And then when that person tells a friend of theirs, oh, I just met Jane or John or whatever it is, well, they're really interesting. They've got this and that and the other. But I guarantee you, the same person meeting you in a group situation is saying, who the hell are they? What are they doing here? And what are they into? And you don't get seen. You don't get seen. See, for other types, that can be wonderful. Generators is an example. They don't give a shit about that. They just want to use their energy efficiently. And groups are ways in which that dynamic works for them. It's all fine. You do your job, I'll do my job. Okay, here we go. And they're designed for that. You're not designed for that. You're not. You're not designed to be group people. It's not what you're here for. And you have to understand as parents that you're here to deal with your children one-on-one. That's what I have to do as a manifester with a weak, penta configuration. It's the only way it's going to work. I can't sit my children down together, and do something effective with them intellectually. I can't. The moment I sit down with my children together, I'm an idiot who has no potential, and they're going to direct my life. Now, I'm joking, but I'm not. It is the mechanism. It's totally different. But the moment I'm one-on-one with my children, it's something else entirely. That's when we're all open to each other because we have this whole thing, and my children are generators, so they're natural penta people. And the only way that I can really deal with them is to pull them out of that penta, deal with them one-on-one. And that way we have a legitimate relationship. The same thing is true, for what it is to be a projector and what it is to be a projector parent. The beauty of your relationship with your children is one-on-one because you will see them. You'll see them. If you take the combination of working one-on-one with your children and knowing their design, they're so lucky. I know that about my children, how lucky they are. That they are accepted for what they are, they're seen for what they are, and they're treated accordingly. And as a projector, to be a projector parent is this extraordinary potential, to guide the most important beings that you're ever going to have in your life, after all. Nothing gives me greater pleasure than impacting as a manifester my children. It's more important for me to impact my children than it is to impact you. It is a gift that is there. It's the same thing for being a projector. You're here to guide your children. You're here to guide them well. No parent is better equipped to being a guide than a projector. But again, you have to be correct. And more than that, your children have to learn to ask you for guidance. See, I teach my children how to deal with me. I've taught them how to deal with me. Because it's not an easy thing to deal with a manifester. You can't ask a manifester, and you can't tell them. You can't ask them, and you can't tell them. You can only state things. I've told my children, just have conversations with me. Let me work out, as a manifester, what I need to do about what you're telling me. But don't ask me to do anything, because I'm a manifester. I'm going to do what I want. Don't tell me what to do. I'll punch you in the face. Because I'm a manifester. But if you're talking to me, and in the conversation you're talking about how difficult it is to do your schoolwork without a new set of pens, I'll probably go out and get you a set of pens. This is the whole thing. I teach my children how to deal with me. They understand that I've got a closed aura. They know that they can't spend a lot of time in my aura. But they don't take that as a problem in their relationship or that they're missing something or whatever. It's just the way that I am. I remember my son, when he was very young, about 6 years old, a friend came to visit me. A friend asked him where I was. And he said, he's out there watching the movie. My kids know me. He's over there somewhere, He's doing his thing. And if you don't explain that, you end up with a lot of problems. You end up with children that think that they're not being loved, that they don't have this, that they don't have that, and all the blah, blah, blah that everybody goes through. And it's about educating your children about who you are. You're a projector parent. You say to your children, look, you can always get the best out of me by asking me. If you've got a problem, don't wait for me to solve it. Don't wait for me to see it. Invite me to help you, because that's what I'm good at. This is what you're good at. And you see, when you educate people about those people that are close to you, particularly in family situations, it takes all the pressure away. All of it. And you get down to the nitty-gritty of, being able to have a proper relationship. I have a fabulous relationship with my kids. And all of that is about, allowing yourself to be revealed. This is what I am. This is the way it works. This is what you are. This is the way you work. I will ask you, all of these things that you can process. And then you don't have all of these dilemmas. We were all raised in absolute ignorance. And those of us that didn't fit into the generating majority, particularly projectors, all this incredible pressure. There's so much pressure placed on projector children not to be projectors. Anything but being a projector. And then when I've shown you how you're not even seen because you're caught in this matrix that doesn't allow what you're here to be recognized for to even come to the surface. Okay, last one here. Sylvia. This is a definition, head center to the ajna center. Everything else is open. So, fundamentally, this is a typical cross of consciousness thing. It's all about being able to come up with answers, basically. Answers, making sense out of things for others. It really is about being recognized for intellectual, conceptual capacity. In other words, through concepts to be able to provide for others. But here's a classic example because you've got an open throat. So, with the open throat, it really protects you in a way as a projector. It says, if they don't invite you, you don't even get the access. And if you try to do your projector work with an open throat by initiating, you're eventually going to end up with terrible thyroid problems, and other things that are going to arise out of that. And you're very, very open at the penta level. So, you totally get unseen. To be a mental projector and to be weak in the penta is to really not be seen at all. At all. And you see, everybody thinks that their mind is there to tell them what to do. And only certain people are here to guide others mentally. Not an easy thing to guide others with concepts. It isn't, I know. It's what I do for a living. Not an easy thing to do. And you see, you can't do that unless it's correct. You know, I put out an advertising and I inform you I'm going to do this. You know, that's correct for me. You know, I don't ask you to come because I don't care. You know, I just let you know I'm going to do this. You know, that's my thing. You know, if you're a projector, you've got to be able to set the table. You're the one that has to set the criteria of the way in which you are seen and the way in which you connect with others. And one place you can't do that is by being pulled inside and being assessed there. This is where your whole life process broke down very, very early in your life. It broke down by not being recognized. And not being recognized for truly what is there. Because that's the thing that needs to be nurtured in this life. Each of you, in terms of what's potential for you as guides, that whatever that guidance is going to be is coming out of your definition. I mean, that's what it's coming out of. If that's not getting recognized, if that's being cut off, you're never going to be able to fulfill that potential, nor do you get into the, you know, like riding a bicycle, get to that place where being a projector and being you is the most natural thing, and not being afraid to set the terms. There's nothing to hide. You know, particularly when you're dealing with family. You know, it's another thing when you're dealing with a family that you were born into, often because of the generational differences and, you know, all these things, it is often very, very difficult to even try to fix that. All you can do is remember what's important for you. If you want to maintain bonds within your family, you need to do so at an individual level. That they begin to get an inkling that you're more than what they have seen in that fixed pattern. If you want to be able to have success in your relationship with your children, with your lovers, with your friends, you've got to let them know the way that it works. You've got to let them know what you will not put up with. You have to make sure that you live your life according to what is correct for you. If you don't have the strength to do that, you're never going to get any reward. You're not. You're never going to see what it feels like to actually be a success. You know, this is what we're waiting for. It's what everybody dreams about on this planet. It's the projector promise, the promise of success. You know, and this success for you is very, very simple. Be seen for what you are. The moment that you're seen for what you are, you get to live your life. You just do. You get there by honoring your strategy and authority. You get there by being aware that certain situations are not healthy for you. You know, those situations where you get into group environments where you lose your recognition capacity. When I train alphas to run a group, I train the alpha, the projector alpha, never to deal with the whole group at the same time. You take one person at a time into your office or whatever it is, and you deal with them, each one. And each one feels special in that. Remember how beautiful it is for most beings to be in the embrace of a projector's aura. I mean, aside from all the things that, you know, we've looked at over this weekend, don't forget how powerful it is to be you. That aura gives enormous attention, gives enormous focus. You know, when you're dealing with a projector one-on-one, there is nothing more intense in the way in which that connection actually operates. It's a magnificent thing. And you need to see that that's the only thing that works for you, is that power. You know, like I described to you yesterday, if you're in a room with a bunch of people, you can only focus on one at a time anyway. And everyone you're not focused on isn't going to appreciate it. They're not. So one at a time is the way in which it works. And if you're going to be a projector parent and you're going to be sitting with your family, you know right away that there are those sitting there that are upset because you're not paying any attention to them. The children of projectors, all they ever want is alone time with their parent. I mean, that's what children of projectors want. Give me some alone time. I don't want to be there with my brother or my sister or everybody else. I just want to be there with you. Because that's when they get the magic of what you're there for, that you're there for them. And you see, you need to understand that. You need to understand how important that aura is to other people. Think about the millions and millions and millions of people that have an undefined throat. All they're ever looking for is attention. Wow, do they love projectors. Right? My son with his open throat, his best friends are all projectors. He loves it. And he understands the mechanism. He knows. And I said to him, well, what's it like? He said, I like it. Yeah, I know they tap into my energy, but I like the attention. He's very aware of it. He's a very powerful generator. He's very, very aware of what that relationship is. But he enjoys it. He gets the attention that he wants. And for him, that's terrific. He understands and appreciates what a projector brings. And of course, with that attention, it's just not the attention. It's what they recognize, it's what they bring with them, their intelligence and all of the various things that are there, that it becomes a very special relationship. It just does. And you see, all those people out there who are not projectors, their idea of a friend, their idea of somebody they can talk to is you. It's you. That's what they want. That's what they're looking for. And you see, if you're correct and you're waiting for the invitation, you get the reward of that. Because you see, you are so valuable to the other in that way. Most human beings never get any attention. They never get any real, direct attention. They just don't. They're dying for it. They want somebody to look at them. They want somebody to listen to them. They want somebody there that can help them. I've had thousands and thousands and thousands of people come and have a reading with me, and they all want the same thing. Tell me what to do. Please, tell me what to do. And I don't do that. I tell them, you've got a strategy and authority, figure it out. But this is what you're about. You're the guides. You're the answer to all of those people who are saying, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do about my life, my body, my health, my this, my that, blah, all that stuff. I don't know what to do, and you can do it for me. You see, you have to be ready for that. That's the service that is there, inherent in what it is to be a projector. Is to be available for that. That's the job. Right? There is no other job. All the things that I can tell you about the this and the that and all that stuff, it all comes back to very basic things. It comes back to your strategy and authority. It comes back to the integrity of what it is to be a projector. It comes back to you recognizing that it is ultimately going to be up to you how this is going to all work out. That you're not here to be dependent on anyone and anything. You're not. You're here to be guides. You're not here to be dependent. And the only way that you can fulfill that role is by being needed. You're not here to be dependent, but you're here to be needed. Nobody is needed more on this plane than projectors. And of course, because projectors are not correct, it's a mess. Because you're not getting from them what's possible. You're not. We still have this enormous dysfunction in the way in which energy operates on this plane. And the only way that that's going to change, the only way that human beings are going to begin to function in a way that is really healthy, is if they have proper guidance. And that proper guidance literally has to come from you. Yeah, well, that's all I have to say. If you have any questions, by the way, I will answer some questions. What's that? I didn't do your chart. Oh, you weren't here. You were late. Yes. You'll be punished in hell for that. You're here to be recognized as a talent. After all, the only channel you have is the 1648. It's a channel of talent. When you hear things like that, you have to understand. Again, it goes back to my whole thing about projectors and what they learn. If you don't have something that you focused on, you don't have anything to deliver. You can have natural talent, but if you don't have something to be talented with, you don't have anything. So it always goes back again to, what is the thing that is there for you? What is that thing that you dig into? And of course, in your design, you're very open in the penta. Everybody is, by the way. You saw that, all of you as projectors. The fact is that, the penta is not something for you. So the moment that you step into the group, it's the same thing. Nobody sees your talent. Nobody. Don't see it at all. The only thing they see is glue. Okay? Because you have the 5th gate and the 29th gate. Both of them are very much involved in holding the group together. So, people want you to be in the group because they think the group will hold together better. And then they totally ignore your talent. And pay absolutely no attention to it. Again, this is what happens to us. We get stuck with the way in which we're perceived through the limitation of the penta, and then what we really are is not on display, and nobody pays any attention for it. So again, it just goes back to the, it's a discipline after all. It's this discipline that says, I'm going to live my life correctly. And all you can do is try. Particularly for those of you that are new. Forget about everything that I've told you this weekend. Really, forget it all if you're new to human design, and just follow your strategy and authority. Because it's the only way you're going to find out whether this is correct for you and whether you can take this to where it can go. Because this is not about your mind saying, oh, gee, he said that, I'm going to do that. It doesn't work that way. You can't mentally fulfill your potential on this plane. You're not going to do that. You're not going to fix your life. Your mind is your problem. How is it going to be your solution? It's not suddenly going to be your solution. It isn't. It doesn't work that way. It's why we have a strategy and authority. So the most important thing, particularly for newcomers, experiment with just waiting for the invitation. There isn't anything else to do. Because you get to see it's there. It's there. It's what's going to make a difference in your life. This is what strategy and authority is about. I'm not, I don't care if there are people that, study human design. It's not what human design is here for. It's not here for study. The only people legitimately who study human design are those who want to be professionals, who need the tools and all the knowledge and so forth and so on. Human design is a gateway to mechanical correctness. It's just a technique. Give me a generator that's open, and I will say, follow your strategy and authority. Respond. They don't need to study to fulfill that. Nobody does. Everybody's strategy and authority is fundamentally simple. It is. But human beings are terrified of the simple. They don't trust it. But that's what it is. It's deeply simple. It's a mechanism. These vehicles are mechanisms. If you operate the vehicle correctly, you're going to have a better life. So, the first step to being a projector is really be a projector. That means you wait for the invitation. It means you stop initiating. It means you don't allow your mind to control your life. You wait and see what life is going to bring you. And only then can you begin to see the magic. You can't see it beforehand. You can't think your way out of this box. The only thing you can do is live your way out of it. You're here to live this. There is nothing more banal, than a concept that's not lived. This is about living. This is about your life. It's about transforming your life. It's about giving you a better life. It's about allowing you to rediscover your spirit. My job on this plane, aside from being a messenger of mechanics, is to encourage human beings to see that they are lovable, that they are worthy, that you can love yourself, that you can really love yourself, and not love yourself in a narcissistic way, because it's not what it's about. It's about loving the fact that you are able to be on this plane in a way that's fulfilling for you, because that's what it's about. We're not here to suffer. We're not here on this plane to be punished. We're not. We have every opportunity in life on this plane to be able to be fulfilled. It's there in your signature. I'm a manifester. My signature is peace. That's the story of my life, to find peace. And once that peace is there, everything is perfect. Same with being a generator. You're here to find satisfaction. If you're a projector, you're here to find success. And you're only going to get that success when you live a projector's life and you accept what it is to be a projector. That you see your beauty, that you see the power that's there, that you see the potential that's there. And then you insist that others see it. You wait for them to see it. And you wait and see who sees it, because those are your allies in this life. Those are the beings that are going to respect you, that are going to love you, that are going to care about you. They're the ones who are going to recognize your gifts. They're the ones who are going to help you to fulfill your process. Because after all, to be a projector that's here to guide, your success is not just being invited to guide, but guiding well. Guiding according to what it is that is correct for you, that is, wherever your particular gifts are, in terms of the knowledge base that you have. And whether it's guiding somebody to dig a better cesspool, or guiding somebody to have, a better marriage, or whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter what you're guiding. It matters that it's what is correct for you to do. And again, for you, for children that are projectors that you're going to meet or that you know, the most important thing is what they're going to be focused on. It's like this knowledge as projectors. It's not enough. You're not generators that can be told to respond and they can walk away. You need to study. You need to figure out how these things work. You need to see the mechanics clearly. It's so essential for you because you're systems people. You're here to see these things. But you also need to see that whatever your interests are, that you have to recognize that only those things that are invited, that are brought into your life. It's like having a projector child. You invite the projector child to try something. Would you like to try ballet? Would you like to try skateboarding? Would you like to try whatever it happens to be? It is an invitation. And the moment that invitation is there, you open up the possibility for them to actually be recognized, get to see what is really for them, and to be able to make a proper decision. And then you have a totally different being. You have years and years and years of conditioning that you need to get rid of. That's cellular. That's 7 years. It takes time. And while you're getting there, you need to understand the movie and the way the program works. You do. And you need to understand your own limitations so you can transcend it. And you can. The moment that you're living correctly, you can. If I look back at my life 20 years ago and the kind of anger that used to move through my system as a manifester, I never thought it would go away. The angry young man, portrait of an artist as a fucked up young man, all that anger, all that stuff, And it does. Now I get angry for a millisecond. I used to get angry about something and it would stick in my craw for years. I mean, you can't escape chemistry. If you're a projector, bitterness is in your chemistry. So you want to reduce it. You want to make sure that it doesn't become the dominant chemistry that is there. You want to replace that with the other side of the coin, the success. You're a success when you're recognized. You're a success when you're recognized for what you've accomplished. For what you bring to the table, for the awareness that you bring. So, it's about waiting. It's always about waiting. Allow these things to come into your life, and learn the game of what it is to be a projector. Makes it a lot easier. Okay, folks. Yeah, sure. Yes. You deal with one person at a time. And, basically what happens in a penta is that if you're the alpha of a penta, you've got somebody in the penta. I mean, obviously this class is not about teaching a penta. You're always going to have somebody in that penta that has responsibilities in the penta for others. So that person you bring into your space and you say to them, look, we need to do this, and this. Make sure that Joan and Harry do that, and go do it. And they go back into the penta, and they do that.
Does it work the same way in a wa? If you're in a wa?
The wa is much more complex, but it's the same thing.
So you still want to be outside of it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Look, projectors don't belong on the inside. They belong on the outside. Now, there are certain things that you have to take into account. For example, in a large organization, you may have to do a certain amount of time on the inside learning the way that business operates or whatever. But always, with the understanding that this is leading to the outside in that sense. The best place for projectors to be in relationship to groups or large business groups or large organisms of that kind is always to be a consultant. Is always to be somebody on the outside that is brought in. That way, you're always protected and you're always safe. It is the ideal profession, if you will, as a generic term for what it is to be a projector. Projectors are consultants. And that can operate at many levels. That is, you could be some kind of, health well-being practitioner. You can, whatever the category is, it is always safer for you to be that consultant that the other seeks out, and in that you can do your job. So whether you're consulting for a business or for a group or whatever, you're always better being on the outside. Always. Yeah.
We sit up there and
yes.
maintain our integrity.
Yes. Yeah, because it is psychological. That is, I'm sitting up here, so the assumption is I lead. And the assumption is that I'm not you. I'm the teacher, you're the class. So there is always this division. And I do make certain point of giving myself some auric distance. It doesn't do any good in a room full of projectors. It doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, I'm already baked in projector light at this point.
What about normal gatherings, parties, stuff like that? I know that I don't do well
Yeah.
most of the time.
Yeah.
So I just sit.
Yeah. If you're invited and your authority says yes, then even if it's not the greatest experience, it's okay for you. It isn't going to harm you. It's only those situations where you're going against your own authority. You're not being invited. You decide to drop by, or these kinds of things. That's when it's really unhealthy. I mean, the assumption is always that if you're correct, everything's perfect, and it's not so. Again, it's one of my favorite things. It's like being a third line being. If you're correct, you make the right mistakes. The right mistakes are enormously valuable. The wrong mistakes are a pain in the neck, but the right mistakes are valuable. So going into that social situation, if it's correct to enter into it, what you're going to get out of it is limited, but at the same time, it's not going to be negative. And ultimately, what happens is that it reduces downward. In other words, I have said no to so many invitations, requests that people have, particularly socially, that kind of stuff. And it's not my thing. I'm not good at it. I'm not a penta person. I'm a manifester. I end up in the corner by myself anyway. So, over the years, basically, I have just constantly refused. Now nobody invites me anymore. It's perfect. I don't even have to deal with the problem. They invite my family and not me. Because they know that I'm not coming. They already know. And they don't blame me or anything. They just know he's not going to come. And it's the same thing about being, if you live your identity, nobody will resent you for being yourself. Yeah, and even if they do, but they won't. They won't. It's like being a manifester and informing. Even if you're informing the most horrendous thing, at least you're given, space, because you're doing the right thing. So as a projector, it's so easy if you just release yourself into being what you are. Because that's all this is. That's all it is. I'm very, very content being a manifester. I know all the negatives. I know all the things, all of that stuff. It is what it is. I accept the limitation of what it is to be a manifester and do the best that I can to exalt it. My own process. You do what you can. You're a projector. You live a projector's life. But what's so important for me, because you're such a huge swath of humanity, is that, you've got to come to grips with the beauty of what it is to be a projector and how to live that, so that other projectors get to see that, get to learn that. The children that are projectors get to experience that, get to live that, because this is all new for projectors. You've been suffering a very long time in this kind of ignorance. It is not an easy thing, and understanding how this works and redefining the way in which you operate makes an enormous difference. And remember, strategy and authority is a very helpless thing. To wait for an invitation, you have to have enormous trust. This is what the experiment is based on. And if you can't do it, it's okay. It's just not meant for you. After all, I don't expect all of you to wake up. It's not what I'm here for. I'm just a teacher. I tell you how the things work, and we wait and see what happens. And you have to see that for yourself. This is your movie. It's about what you want out of this life. And most human beings, after they've lived a not-self life and have an inkling of what's possible, they don't ever want to go back to that process. You just don't. You don't. What you want is to complete it. You want to get to that place where you really fulfill it. And in the end, it's not all the things you think about. It's how you live this. I know so many people that in the pursuit of knowledge, that they don't live the truth. And it's a sad thing. There's all these people that are into all kinds of stuff, that they think is an answer, but the answer is in what you live. Human design says, look, we're just a mechanism. Take the mechanism, live your life. See what it's like. See what it's like to be you. Not what your parents thought you were, or your partner thinks you are, or all that stuff. It's about you living your life, and about discovering what that means. Because most of you don't know. You don't know the magic of what it is to be you. You still carry all the burdens of the conditioning that say, I'm not great, and I'm not fabulous, and I'm not this, and I'm not that. I'll probably never be this or that or the other thing, and it's not true. It isn't. It is just simply accepting conditioning. We're not here for that. You're here to live out a unique process. Okay, that's it. To all of you online, nice that you were here. I hope you enjoyed all of that. And by the way, just to let you know that in the resource area, and in a few minutes I'll put up this afternoon's, in the resource area you can download the recordings. So nice to see you out there, and enjoy your projector process. Bye for now.